Good afternoon and welcome to RCI's Navshikhar channel. I welcome our viewers to our show today. Our topic of discussion for today is role and type of counselling in disability rehabilitation. And to discuss with us on this topic, we have with us our expert, Dr. S.K. Prasad, who is a Deputy Director with the IGNOU. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, before we move on with the discussion, I'd like to give our viewers a brief introduction about what we'll be discussing today. Basically, rehabilitation counselling helps people with disability to achieve their independent goals like personal goals, career goals, etc. So we'll discuss about how the role and type of counselling depends for the disability rehabilitation. Before we start on, I would request our viewers to please call us on any of these numbers for any queries relevant to the topic today. Our toll-free number is 1800112008. Our telephone number is 265-11613 and our fax number is 265-11609. So we'll move on with the discussion now.
Yeah.
To begin with, what exactly do you mean by rehabilitation?
Basically, you are quite right. Basically, before discussing about the counseling, we must know about the rehabilitation. We can go for the first slide. This is about the disability because rehabilitation is a very broad term in which disability is one of the part where we use the term rehabilitation. So, along with rehabilitation, we must include disability rehabilitation because we are working for here for the disability care and cause of disability. So, disability basically that disability rehabilitation means or refers to a process of mainstreaming of children or persons with disability, because this is a process, this is not a concept, rather it is a process which takes time. This is not a matter of 1 or 2 days, it is a lifelong process in fact. Or this process consists of various stages, not only one stage, rather it has a various stages through which we complete this process of rehabilitation and then achieve our goal of mainstreaming the persons with disability or children with disability so far. So, this is all about the rehabilitation. Now, we can say that in this rehabilitation, as I have already told, there are so many stages which consist or which compose with the rehabilitation. So, all these stages has a great role to play on the regarding counseling. Counseling has an important role in all these stages, unless. So, before going for that, we must think that what does it counseling mean, because sometimes this word counseling is a very, you can say, an synonymous word of different like advice and guidance and so on. So, we must understand in a proper way what does it counseling mean. Before that, I would like to just share with you that what are the stages which consist of the rehabilitation. Basically, this rehabilitation process has 3 stages, you can say, that is identification, intervention and integration, and all these 3 stages has a same goal like objective, which is mainstreaming of persons or children with disability in society and or mainstreaming them for a to having a or for a being a productive citizen of the country. So, all these stages has important role of counseling, such as for identification, parents and community counseling is must. Unless the parents are not aware about the disability or what are the potentials of disabled people, so they will not be going to accept the child. So, for acceptance within the community or within the home environment, it is necessary that parents should have a proper counseling. Counseling means that expert advice should be there. And then this is intervention. Again, I will say that intervention has so many stages also. Intervention is a main process, you can say, of rehabilitation. So, it consists of various stages or various types, you can say. So, this first of all, intervention has a role where we take the help of medical professional. Then school is one of the things, you can say that educational intervention is there, then vocational rehabilitation, you can say. So, these are the things which comes in between while we going through the rehabilitation. Then integration, this is the ultimate objective of rehabilitation, that is integration in this way the individual itself along with the society at large needs counseling time to time. But not only persons who is having the disability or who is having that condition of disability, rather apart from that all the members related to the persons, including the members having surroundings of the person or even residing in the community, they need a thorough counselling in this regard. So, counselling is a very broad term, you can say.
So that means counseling
Yeah.
is required at every stage
Yes,
of
yes.
the rehabilitation
Yes,
process.
without I can say that counselling is a, you can say, a main tool for the rehabilitation.
And
of particular
different
different
kinds of counseling can be required at different
Yes,
stages
yes,
in the
yes. Now
process.
you have to identify which type of counselling is required there and what will be the role of counselor in that particular period or particular
And will the
cycle.
professionals providing counseling also differ?
I'm coming to the
Okay.
point. So, first of all we should understand that counseling has what connotation is the counseling, because counseling के साथ बहुत सारे ऐसे वर्ड हैं, शब्द हैं जो कि मेल खाते हैं, तो हमें पहले क्लियर करना पड़ेगा कि उन सभी में क्या डिफरेंस है, क्योंकि आप एक वर्ड जो समझो गाइडेंस, दूसरा वर्ड है हमारे पास एडवाइस. एडवाइस एक ऐसा वर्ड है जो हमें कहने की ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ती है, बिना कहे हुए हमें हर जगह मिल जाती है. आप बस अपना प्रॉब्लम बताइए, एडवाइस आपके सामने मौजूद होगा, चाहे आप किसी से पूछते हैं चाहे नहीं. बट वो एडवाइस हर कोई, यहाँ की एडवाइस देना सबसे आसान काम होता है और एडवाइस हम करते हैं, तो ये बहुत ही इम्पॉर्टेंट टर्म है और बहुत ही ओपन टर्म है, यू कैन से. तो यहाँ पर हम थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूज करते हैं और इसलिए हमें काउंसलिंग का मीनिंग समझना बहुत ज़रूरी है. यहाँ अदर वर्ड है गाइडेंस. गाइडेंस भी हमें हर जगह मिल जाती है. हमें गाइडेंस की ज़रूरत है कि नहीं ज़रूरत है ये हम डिसाइड नहीं कर पाते हैं, लेकिन गाइडेंस हमें मिल जाती है. तो ये भी हमें देखना पड़ेगा कि वेदर दिस इज़ काउंसलिंग और समथिंग एल्स. तो काउंसलिंग के टर्म को समझना सबसे पहले ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि ये टर्म ऐसा है कि अगर हम इसकी जानकारी नहीं है तो ये टर्म को हम मिसयूज भी करते हैं. तो हमें इस टर्म को मिसयूज नहीं करके यूज करने की क्षमता को विकसित करना है. बेसिकली आज का जो पर्पस है हमारा टेली कॉन्फ्रेंस का, कि हम सभी जितने भी टारगेट ग्रुप हैं, जितने भी स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं इस डिसेबिलिटी रिहेबिलिटेशन में, एटलीस्ट सभी को के साथ हम अपने जो टर्म हैं उनको शेयर करें और उनकी इसके प्रॉपर जानकारी होनी चाहिए कि किस किस टर्म में हम इस शब्द का यूज कर सकते हैं और किन किन जगह पर, किन किन स्टेजेस में हम इस टर्म का कौन सी अवस्थाएं हैं जहां हम इस टर्म का उपयोग कर सकते हैं प्रॉपरली. So, basically there are two basic concepts, this guidance and counseling. So, always you will find these two terms together, guidance and counseling. Most of the time this guidance is always you can find before counseling, or you can say counseling follow guidance. So, these two terms must be clear about this. Let us take the guidance. The guidance is a process of helping an individual to help him or herself assess her potential, formulate the action plan and proceed for implementation. So, this is basically, this is also a, you can say the scientific term, you can say a very structured term, and it is a process of helping an individual to assess their potential. Everybody has potential, you know, everybody know that either irrespective of the condition, everybody has the potential. It depends on the quantity. Someone has more potential, someone has less potential, someone is capable of doing something, someone is capable of doing something. So, it is an individual difference where everywhere it exists in the personality of the person. So, now this potential should be recognized first by the person itself or the community at large. So, guidance is a process where we just guide the person to assess their potential in a proper way, or not only assess, rather after getting assessment it should be implemented or it should be used properly.
So that means
This-
guidance is very important for the person to identify
Yes.
what is his potential and where he
Yes.
can establish
But,
himself.
now I am coming to this in a simple term, you can say that this is a helping process given by qualified and trained person, not only all. If I have a medical problem, I must take guidance from a qualified doctor, not from the neighbor. If doctor is a neighbor, then okay. And then help given to a person to develop his personality. I am quoting here personality, but it should be in any term, not only personality. And then help given to person to enable him to serve the society to the best of his capabilities and talents. Whatever the potential, talents, intellectual capacity the person has, that must be properly utilized, and then help given to a person so that he or she can solve his problem, his or her problem. Help should be given, a guidance should be given a way that the person concerned at least could be able to solve the problem in a better way.
So does this counseling and guidance, is it relevant to only in a certain aspect of the whole process of the person's disability, or is it about everything? For example, if I take an example of a mentally retarded child, for example, he has a problem, is it just about his physical needs or his emotional, every need?
Every need. Where there is need, there is a guidance and counseling.
So there are different kinds of counselors
Yes,
for
certainly,
the different
I am
needs
coming
also.
to that point also. Now come to the counseling. This is also a process, as I have already told that rehabilitation is a process, guidance is a tool, but counseling is also a process of assistance. This is a process of assistance to individual extended by an expert on individual basis. So guidance can be a common guidance, but this counseling basically it aims to provide on a one to one basis, it means individual basis. Here we can say that this is a very specific target oriented process.
It will be a more personalized
Yes.
program.
So now here the person own problem could be solved, and in guidance we can solve a general problem also. But counseling basically mean but now the term is going slightly broad, now we will see later on. So it takes place in one to one relationship between an individual who is in trouble and a professional who by a training experience help the individual to reach out a solution. It means it is a process of one to one basis. It is the intervention process, you can say. What does it mean? Intervention mean, this means that to intervene in between, to intervene between something.
Interfere in between.
Interfere, come in between. So as a counseling process come between the individual and the problem. So problem is at other end, individual at
So
this
we can
end.
say the counseling process is a bridge between the individual and the problem.
Not bridge, you
is
can
the
say.
gap between the
Yes,
individual and the problem.
it's a intervention. No, bridge means we are just connecting two things.
Yeah.
Here we are
Solving the
eliminating
problem.
two things.
Eliminating
We
the
are
problem.
just giving a new shape
Yeah.
to the other end, because first it was problem, then through counseling we are solving the problem, and that problems turns into a solution. So the other end becomes a different shape. The individual is also coming to in a different way, or different person, you can say. So in simple terms, counseling aimed at bringing about desired change in the individual for self realization. I am just discussing one by one. Self realization, this is a very important term here. What does it mean, self realization? Basically, when we feel any type of problem, what happened in that way? Our self confidence get down immediately. When our self confidence got down, then only we feel that there some problem is going, or some problem is coming, or some problem is already going around. Unless I am confident, it is not a problem. So here what counselor do, that they provide some expert help to the person, so that the person that confidence enhance, and their self realization with their self potential could be realized, that I am that much of potential that I can deal with this problem.
So that means counseling will also help boost the ego and self confidence of the person himself.
Don't tell ego is something
not
else.
ego, the self confidence and his
self confidence is.
Okay, so this is what we're discussing about the rehabilitation of the disabled. We'll continue with the discussion, but right now it's time for a short break, so we'll see after break.
The chief handicap of the blindness is not blindness, but the attitude of seeing people towards them. आइए जानने और समझने की कोशिश करते हैं कि बधिरांधता यानी डेफ ब्लाइंडनेस क्या है। बधिरांधता एक स्थिति है जिसमें दृष्टिहीनता एवं सुनने की शक्ति में कमी आती है तथा जिससे विचारों के आदान प्रदान और रोजमर्रा की आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति में समस्या उत्पन्न होती है। बलराम एक 9 साल का बधिरांत बच्चा है। वो एक प्री मैच्योर बच्चा है जिसका शारीरिक विकास उसकी आयु के अनुरूप नहीं हुआ था। वो एक निम्न वर्गीय श्रेणी से संबंध रखता है तथा 5 साल से लगातार नेशनल एसोसिएशन फॉर ब्लाइंड दिल्ली के प्रशिक्षण कार्यक्रम से संलग्न है। इन 5 सालों के अंतर्गत उसे रोजमर्रा के कामों में, हलन चलन में, उसकी शैक्षणिक जरूरतों के अनुसार संप्रेषण द्वारा प्रशिक्षण दिया गया है जिससे वो इन सब क्रियाओं में स्वावलंबी बन सके। बलराम बिना किसी सहायता के चाकू से फलों को काट सकता है। उनके छिलकों को कूड़ेदान में डाल सकता है। अपने बर्तनों को खुद साफ कर सकता है। उन्हें सही जगह पर रख सकता है। सही बर्तनों का चयन करके खुद खाना खाता है। एवं पानी की बोतल निकालकर पानी भी पीता है। इन सभी क्रियाओं में वो टेक्चुअल साइन लैंग्वेज से निर्देशों को ग्रहण करता है और अपने भावों को व्यक्त करता है। टेलर फ्रेम और ब्रेलर द्वारा गणित, पठन लेखन में भी प्रशिक्षण प्राप्त कर रहा है। सभी बच्चों की तरह उसका भी एक मनपसंद खेल है। उसे सेल फोन को अपने कानों पर लगाकर उसका कंपन महसूस करना अच्छा लगता है। कहा जाता है, वॉकिंग विद अ फ्रेंड इन डार्क इज बेटर देन वॉकिंग अलोन इन लाइट। कहने का तात्पर्य है कि वो लॉन्ग केन ट्रेवल, टैक्टाइल पाथ, ट्रेलिंग और लैंडमार्क्स द्वारा हलन चलन में भी सक्षम है और व्यायाम संबंधी क्रियाएं जैसे ट्रेडमिल, स्टैटिक साइकिल का स्वचालन भी कर सकता है। कहा गया है, द बेस्ट एंड मोस्ट ब्यूटीफुल थिंग्स इन द वर्ल्ड कैन नॉट बी सीन और इवन टच्ड, दे मस्ट बी फेल्ट विद द हार्ट।
Welcome back after the break. Our topic of discussion for today is role and type of counseling in disability rehabilitation. And until now we have discussed as to what rehabilitation means, what are the various stages in rehabilitation, and right now we were discussing what guidance and counseling means and what are the aims of counseling now. So we'll
Yes.
continue with this discussion.
Yeah, so we were discussing the in fact the meaning of the counseling first. So it's a you have already seen that it's a process, and it's a process of one-to-one basis. We provide counseling, or not only we, rather we can say experts provide counseling on one-to-one basis to solve the personal problem, you can say personal problem related to anything, related to any aspects of life, and the person who is providing the solution must be an expert in that particular area, and the solution is provided to basically to develop the self realization within the person themselves. And for self realization, all this all the component of self like emotional problems, personality problems and other related concept is immediately, or you can say automatically, get cleared. So, counseling is a very you can say a specific process which is provided by an experts, not by anybody else, like other concept and advice and other things. So, as I have already discussed, the counseling is a things which is necessary for all the stages, and we discussed 3 stages, basically identification and intervention and integration. Now, we will discuss all the stages one by one. Before that, I would like to just share with you that not only identification, rather counseling is important for prevention also. This is also one of the area where counseling is very much needed, because prevention is, you know that prevention is the main remedy, you can say,
Obviously, prevention is better than cure.
So, this counseling, because if we provide counseling before birth or after conception, so it will be more helpful, and this type of counseling could be provided by an experts in the particular area, that like experts in the area of child development, experts in the area of medical intervention, experts in the area of you can say health and hygiene, experts in the area of child development, all these. So, if we need counseling at this stage, like in prevention stage, we must contact all such people who we suppose that they might be able to solve our problem, and not only we suppose, rather the person should have a particular you can say a specialty or expertise. It means the person must be qualified to that extent, so that he or she can provide their expert help or render their expert help to the person concerned who is having the need of counseling by an expert. So, counseling starts from the very beginning of prevention, but so far as the rehabilitation is concerned, disability rehabilitation is concerned, we are mostly concerned with the identification part of rehabilitation, because prevention is a part which is before the birth. So, here we call it rehabilitation. So, it is a concern with the after birth. Basically, counseling is mainly meant for 2 types. Number 1, individual counseling, I have already discussed, that is a one-to-one basis, and the other is a group counseling. Let us have a look at this slide. So, individual counseling, it refers to the individual problem and the assistance extended by the expert to an individual on one-to-one basis, which we have already discussed. Then I am contradicting again, but this is a type of counseling, the group counseling. In this type of counseling, the problem of the group is taken into account and the assistance extended by the expert is for the whole group, such as classroom counseling, peer group counseling, counseling related to social problem, etc., etc. And a spiritual, to some extent a spiritual also. Here group counseling does not mean, let me clarify one thing first, where the counseling hits, where this process hits first. Basically, the counseling process hits the person's mind, not the body, first mind. So, here if a problem arises in all, in a specific group or all the members of the group, it means almost the counseling will not help to solve a particular or a specific problem. There may be some specific problem within the group also, that each and every member should have another or a specific problem, or you can say that minute problem or problem more you can say individualized way or individualized area, which can be discussed later on after having the group counseling. So, this is one of the type which is very important to take into account. Now, we can discuss the counseling and the type of counseling at the various required at the various stages of disability rehabilitation. Now, you can say that for identification, the identification itself a very big problem. This is not a thing which can be dealt with very easily. This is a big problem, you can say now, because in our you know that our culture is a very, you can say, diverse. Even everything in our culture is diverse. So, diversity to identify something is slightly difficult. So, identification, to identify the children with disability, the first target group for counseling is parent and community at large, because here the social stigma plays a very important role. So, first the parents needs to be counseled by an expert. Why the person of children with disability should be identified? Why? Because the person parents never wants that their child should be labeled with the children with disability or child with disability or person with disability. So, basically they refuse that no, we do not have any child of such type. So, what happened in that way? The intervention got delayed. So, ultimately everything every process or what the process is required for the rehabilitation got delayed. So, it has been told that early intervention is always better.
So that means it's very important
Very
that first
important.
the parents should come to terms
Yes.
with the fact
So,
that their child is
yes.
disabled.
So, parental counseling here is extended by an expert for accepting the child. Here what you have to do as a counselor and what you have to expect from the counselor should be able to make the person convinced that the child has a potential, or every child has a potential. In the same way, first the children who is having the disability is a child, they have also potential. So, we have to realize the potential. For realizing the potential, intervention is must. Unless we will not intervene, it will not be going to realize. So, for realization the potential of the person or children with disability, the parents must accept the child as it is, not as we are. So, as it is, acceptance is only done through the proper counseling of parents first.
So in this case, as you're saying that for this early intervention, the parents have to be counseled so that they can accept that the child is disabled. But for example, if we take an example of the villages or the rural areas where the counselors might not be present,
Yes.
in that case, then how would the parents
Yes, you are quite right.
come to the fact?
See, here also we have some you can say problems. Its problems are our own, that we perceive the counselor as a very specific expert. This is a specific expert, but expert can be anyone. We can make the expert anyone, not only person who is having the degree in psychology or who is degree in counseling. We can develop some course, capsule type of course for counselor, and we can train the person who is residing in the village, and they can be given proper information. So, they can at least render those information to the parents.
So that means more important for there to be more awareness.
Yes, awareness,
creating more awareness about
not
all
only
this.
creating awareness, rather orienting the person towards solving a specific goal, a specific problem, or reaching out a specific goal. This is also important, very. So, one process is required to be completed with the help of other process. So, we cannot say that we cannot depute counselor everywhere. Counselor means who is having the degree or diploma in guidance and counseling. No, this cadre can be created, and we are basically we are doing that, and now we are achieving the goal in a proper way. The situation has changed to a large extent. It is not like that which situation was before 10 years, and now the situation is slightly changed and something different. So, but this must be done.
But this is a gradual process.
Yes.
And
so, parental counseling, here you see that parental counseling is very important in the sense that acceptance of the child must be there for further intervention. And then come to the community counseling. You can have a look of this slide. This community counseling, the acceptance of child by parents need a lot of support from the community for which the counseling is rendered to various stages and various stakeholders of the community such as family members, neighborhood, local self-government and professional service provider available within the community. Here the main topic of the counseling should be to explore the potential of children with disability. How potential they are. Unless the people will not recognize that, it will be very difficult to accept the child within the community. So, parents accept the child, but community is not accepting. So, whenever you will go to take the child, they might ignore or they might accept, but if they are aware, if they are properly trained, if they are properly realized that their child has also got some potential, the acceptance will be everywhere in that way. So, methods, the counseling have a different method also. You must be having some question in the mind, the counseling, how we counsel. So, this counseling is something you can say that this is a method of convincing the person. So, this method may be example, you give some examples of the person in and around you and discuss, cite some examples, discuss properly and tell some story. So, storytelling is the best way of counseling. Now, we are coming to the intervention stage, that is the most important stage you can say, because everything is done for this stage only and this stage achieve the ultimate objective. So, intervention is a long and continuous process where a range of service providers extend their specific services to a specific disability group. Here the service provider, the range of service provider is very much, not only one person, rather a team member is required to intervene for the rehabilitation of this person with disability or children with disability. This is not a matter of one service provider. There is a chain of service provider are required to come in between or intervene, to come within the range of intervention. So, the first service provider you can say that the medical professionals, they are the first service provider who properly you can say counsel the parents and refer the case to a specific experts for a specific services. Like for you can say the person having the mental retardation, physician can just have a first look, give first aid and then the child should be referred to the you can say child guidance clinic or experts, or to the experts having the expertise in mental retardation, or a special educator, or a vocational counselor or counselor, so on.
So, that means in the intervention stage there are various kinds of counselors at different levels, they will provide their counseling to the disabled
So,
person.
for example, I have just cited one example, a teacher is required counseling, because teacher is the person who is having the contact with all the child. So, unless the teacher will not be aware about the potential and potential of the mentally retarded child, they will not accept the child in the school for educational intervention.
Another thing that I noticed is that the counseling that has to be extended, it is supposed to be for all the people, that is the disabled person as well as his parents and the community.
More than disabled person.
So, that means not just the disabled person who needs the
not
counseling.
just for rehabilitation, the other person around the disabled who are they required more than the disabled person themselves.
To come to terms and treat and behave with the disabled as it's required.
Because what happened where the counseling is needed, because the person mind, I have already told, the mindset become different. So, if the person concerned, like the person having the mental retardation, or you can say hearing disability, or you can say visual disability, or having the orthopedic problems or cerebral palsy, if the mind of the person is not in a position to accept itself, you can say itself, to that they will not be able to they will be able to handle everything in this world. If this type of sense is coming, then only the person handicapping condition could be removed.
That means very important to have a positive approach.
Yes, positive approach, you can say, you are right, quite right. So, for developing that positive approach, that counseling
Counseling
is
is required.
required. This is not only this cannot be achieved only through guidance or advice. This counseling is required, because here at all the stages the experts is there. So, every experts will provide counseling in their own respective area
And in a more professional manner.
professional manner, and the person will be able to handle
The situation more
situation in a
properly.
more proper way, or you can say systematic way.
Yeah.
Yes. So, what happened that so far as the mental processes are concerned, there are some mental process which disturbs due to disability, and for which the therapy as well as counseling both are required. Some of them are the concentration, you can say memory span, imagination, thinking. These are all the mental process. Like you can say higher mental process, imagination and thinking is a higher mental process, and then memory span and concentration, these are also got disturbed. So, these are required immediate need, immediate counseling to just improve the situation. Like the MR children do not concentrate for longer time, therefore, the teacher could be given guidance and counseling for teaching in a shorter duration with interval. Why they require a shorter duration? The teacher must be thoroughly clarified in this area, that this is the reason why they required a shorter duration of teaching. Then only teacher will be able to do that. Otherwise, teacher will there are so many questions in the mind of teacher which must be solved before getting into intervention. So, this is a type of counseling, you can say. So, this counseling is generated by psychologist,
Okay.
not required for that particular counselor. In that sense, psychologist is working as a counselor, right.
And how would you differentiate between a psychologist and a psychiatrist?
That is a very good question. Psychiatrist is a medical professional, and psychologist is a rehabilitation professional.
So then in
Psychiatrists
case
have a
of
basic degree of MBBS, then they go for the MD in psychiatry, and psychologists they have a basic degree in Master of Psychology. Every member, you can perceive the child, you can see the child, you can assess the child, you can identify the child and then decide.
so that means proper assessment is very important for the child.
Every professional has a role to play, as a not only as a professor, rather as a referral professional also. So, we can refer the child to a specific expert. This is what I mean to say at all. Then family, parents, family members, then community, society, these are all the stakeholders for counseling. The counseling is provided to these target group for supporting the children having mental retardation to develop self-help skill. This is also a special education skill. How to develop? Because development of self-help skill is required. Why? This is a big question. Why this development of self-help skill is required? This question will be solved by a counselor, and who will develop that? That will be therapeutic process, that will be a special education area. But first the parents must be having the clear idea then why this self-help skill is required to develop. So, for clearing that question, counseling is required. So, unless the counselor help is not there, you will not go beyond that, you cannot go ahead. So, for going ahead, counselor help is must, it is always there.
So the family members can also assist the child in however,
Yes.
and it's very important for the surroundings of the child to be
Right.
the way he has.
That's why
he needs
peer
it.
group is more important than family members.
Yeah, right.
Because if the child is in the school, the peer group is the most important group who can help the child, who can not only help, rather support the child, or you can say accompany the child for like other child.
So in this case, as you just mentioned the peer group, I would like to ask, at what stage can you decide whether to send a child to a normal school or to a different school? To a different
Normal school, there is not a question, rather this is a process. If the child has achieved that level, like I am talking about mental retardation, if the child having mental retardation has developed the self-help skills and developed the skills some social skills related to the basic skills related to just day to day life, and having some idea about the 3 R's, we can decide the child should go to the normal school, regular school, you can say mainstream school, you can say. So, this is not some specific criteria, rather it's a matter of time and individual difference in the child. So, it depends on the individual child, and it decided by the
and also by the degree of
decided by the
disability.
service, yes, degree and disability, right, degree and quantity, you can say, of the disability, and like moderate can go much early than the severe.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
So, this is a integration phase which take place sometimes after some giving some special aid, some special education, some special therapy and some special intervention.
Because I personally feel that if a child is going and interacting with more normal people, then automatically his reactions and behaviors will also be as
Yes,
per his peer
certainly.
group.
Yes, certainly
So-
it will be. It will be. It will hamper. It will happen. It is always happening like that. So, more the child will interact in a normal fashion, the more you can say chances are there to rehabilitate in a early.
So that means rather than keeping the child in a closed environment, it's better
Yes,
that
it
he's
should
put
be
out
very-
in,
yes, this is inclusion.
yeah, inclusion.
It's a inclusion. To keep the child in a more specific way, more you can say open than keeping the child enclosed, because that will give some sort of chance to the child to develop in a open way.
That means
And that is
interaction with the society is
yes,
very important.
ultimate goal of counseling and you can say overall rehabilitation process.
Yeah, the inclusion,
Yes, inclusion.
is very
So,
important.
this should be achieved only through the openness of the society as whole, not the closing
And not
the child.
keeping the child in
Uh,
isolation.
isolation. Separation, since you cannot segregate the child and develop the personality. You include the child and develop the personality.
Yeah, right.
So, for all this counseling is required, you can say. So, everywhere you will find that without counseling you cannot go even a step.
At every level
Every
and
level,
with
every
every
level.
person
This
involved.
is not is the case with the person with disability or children with disability only. This is the case with everybody. See, it is a case with everybody. So, first of all we should take the person with disability like other person also. This is our mindset that we take them as specific. They have the problem like other have also problem. So, first take like this. So, then though you can achieve this objective of inclusion. So, first include in your mind, then inclusion will be available in a physical way. So, our mindset is not able to include the children with disability first, because we treat them separately, we treat them in a segregated way, because our mind is visualizing them in a separate identity, giving them separate identity, visualizing them as a separate person having some problems. So, this is our problem, not their problem. This is our mindset, not their mindset. So, first of all every person requires counseling for changing positive mindset, developing positive mindset, changing their existing mindset, whatever it is.
And for example, sometimes it also happens that a child may be good in a particular subject
Yes.
and not in another one. So,
Right.
rather than discriminating him and discouraging him on that subject which he is not good at, we should rather encourage him for the better subject.
This we called aptitude.
Yeah, aptitude.
Yes, this is the aptitude. Every person has some aptitude, so that also needs to identify at a particular stage.
So that means very important to
Yes.
identify the aptitude of the person and
Yes.
then basically work upon that phase and aspect, and so that he can grow in that
Yes,
level.
Yes, right. You are quite right in that way. So, aptitude is must, but identification of aptitude is also a very you can say a specific task.
And again, that will happen through counseling
Counsel,
only.
not counseling, the experts in a particular area.
Okay.
That also needs expertise in that area to identify the child, because there are so many standardized tests also available to just assess the child aptitude, and through the action also we can assess the child aptitude, but this requires a continuous observation and assessment process, right.
So if there is a rehabilitation counselor, so he has to be an expert in a certain field.
Yes, in not only certain field, rather in all field, almost
Okay.
a surface or you can say overall information must be there
Okay.
regarding career also.
So it's
Overall
not just the qualifications but also
Yes.
the awareness
or
and
the counselors or the person should be thoroughly updated
right.
day to day.
Right.
So here you cannot say that if I am trained by a particular school or particular institution, that will not work forever. We have to take our knowledge updated every day, even what is happening around, every information should be there. So this is a process which requires not only by the child, for going to the child we must be update ourselves first.
So that means the counselor has to be an expert,
Yes.
but an expert might not be a counselor.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So this I am continuing with this. Now I have finished mental retardation, so now I am coming to the hearing impairment. So one thing I would like to share with all the viewers, that you must ask question whenever you need, but for that I would like to have a presentation first, then you can ask me any question, and whatever the solution, particular solution will have, I will try to solve that. So this suppose at the intervention it says hearing impairment, a child or a person having hearing impairment. Here the teacher is required counseling for the particularly for the classroom arrangements and allowing the child for communication in the class. This is the main thing which requires for educating the children having hearing impairment. If to give the child proper opportunity in the class. So here counseling is provided to teacher to provide opportunity to child having hearing impairment. अगर उसको नहीं देते हैं तो फिर बच्चे का कोई वहाँ पे, बच्चा क्लासरूम में है बट वो क्लासरूम में नहीं भी है, क्योंकि आपने उसको प्रॉपर प्लेस नहीं किया, आपने उसको प्रॉपर जगह नहीं दी बैठने के लिए. अब हियरिंग इम्पेयर बच्चा है और उसको हम क्लास में सबसे पीछे बैठाए हुए, क्यों? क्योंकि इसके तो कोई चलो बैठा देते हैं किसी तरह से. तो यहाँ पर प्रॉब्लम किसके पास है? प्रॉब्लम टीचर के साथ है. टीचर को क्या करना है कि बच्चे के लिए एक प्रॉपर प्लेस रखना है वहाँ पे क्लास में सबसे आगे बैठने के लिए, और उसको हम मौका दें कि बोलो, तुम भी बोलो, यू ऑल्सो स्पीक. अब बोलते हैं, बोल रहा है बच्चा, चुप हो जा. तो क्लासरूम में क्या, अभी ये मेरा एक्सपीरियंस है, क्लासरूम में टीचर पढ़ा रही है, अगर बच्चे बात बोल कुछ जवाब देना चाह रहे हैं, तुम चुप रहो, तो चुप रहने का मतलब फिर बोलते हैं उसको कि बोलो. दूसरे बच्चे बोलेगा कि आप उसको चुप करा दिए, हम क्यों बोले? नहीं बोलेंगे, हम भी बोलेंगे, आप बोल देंगे कि चुप रहो, इससे अच्छा बोलो ही नहीं.
राइट.
तो ये रॉन्ग मॉडल जाता है ना, रॉन्ग मैसेज जाता है बच्चों के बीच में. अगर आप एक बच्चे को कुछ बोलते हैं, उसके साथ साथ कई बच्चे के पास मैसेज जाता है. तो अगर हम बच्चे के साथ इंटरेक्ट क्लास में नहीं कर रहे हैं, जो भी डिसेबल्ड बच्चा है या हियरिंग इम्पेयर्ड बच्चा है, तो उसका क्या होता है कि टीचर अगर इंटरेक्ट नहीं कर रहे हैं तो अदर बच्चे भी नहीं करेंगे. ये तो नॉर्मल प्रोसेस है, यू कैन ऑल्सो ऑब्जर्व इन द क्लास. अगर हम एज ए टीचर किसी बच्चे के साथ इंटरेक्ट ज़्यादा करते हैं, बच्चे भी उस बच्चे के साथ ज़्यादा करते हैं.
So that means very important. Teacher also has proper counseling.
Teacher must be properly, you can say, oriented or properly aware about the child.
Yeah.
So how to deal with the child. So this is here the role of counselor is very important.
Because the teacher has to be completely supportive of the child.
Yes. Is this I am just telling you about the day-to-day need of counseling, like parents. Why parent and what aspect parents should be counseled first? The parents should be counseled for the care and maintenance of hearing aid first, and then also for its proper use. क्योंकि अगर हियरिंग एड का बच्चा यूज नहीं कर रहा है तो आगे का इंटरवेंशन उसका रुक जाएगा. तो अगर आगे हमें इंटरवेंशन को जारी रखना है और इंटरवेंशन का प्रॉपर हमें आउटकम लाना है, कुछ ना कुछ रिजल्ट लाना है, तो हमें सबसे पहले ये सीखना होगा कि उसके कम्युनिकेशन एड को सही रखें. क्योंकि हियरिंग एड क्या है? हियरिंग एड एक प्रॉपर टूल है जो कम्युनिकेट करने में मदद करता है बच्चे को. क्यों मदद करता है? कि उसके रेसिड्यूअल हियरिंग को यूज करने के लायक बनाता है उसको. तो हमें ये पेरेंट्स को सिखाना पड़ता है. एज ए हियरिंग एड एक्सपर्ट्स हम पेरेंट्स को काउंसिल कर सकते हैं कि हाउ टू provide proper, how to proper use or how to use this hearing aid in a proper way, how to keep the hearing aid clean, how to maintain the hearing aid so that this is the machinery, so this could be go for a long time.
So that means right now we're trying to discuss as to how counseling is very important for the parents as well at the intervention stage, because for example in the hearing impairment, if the child has hearing impairment, then the parents can tell the child and guide the child as to how to take care and maintain the hearing aid and use it as well. So this is what we're discussing about the rehabilitation of the disabled people and the counseling and how it can be provided to those people. So right now it's time for a short break. We'll continue discussion after the break.
This is Aparna. She loves chess and Shah Rukh Khan. Her best friend is Swati. She also has visual impairment. This is Neeraj. He plays many instruments. He loves Mohammad Rafi and cricket. He also uses crutches for mobility.
चंदा है तू मेरा सूरज है तू
This is Raj Bala.
मेरी आँखों का तारा है तू जीती हूँ मैं बस तुझे देख कर
With her husband and daughter. She loves cooking and watching TV.
सूरज है तू मेरी आँखों का तारा है तू
She also has cerebral palsy. Look beyond the disability. Look at the person.
हम होंगे कामयाब हम होंगे कामयाब हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन ओ मन में है विश्वास पूरा है विश्वास हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन We shall overcome, we shall overcome, we shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome someday. We shall overcome someday.
The state of knowledge exists. The will, the capacity, and method are usually the problem. मानसिक मंदता एक ऐसी विकलांगता है जो 18 वर्ष की आयु से पूर्व कभी भी हो सकती है, जिसमें व्यवहार अनुकूलता में कमी एवं बुद्धि क्षमता 70% से कम होती है। Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. भारतीय पुनर्वास परिषद द्वारा देश भर में पंजीकृत केंद्र इस बात को प्रमाणित करते हैं। NIMH प्रादेशिक केंद्र नई दिल्ली एक ऐसा ही केंद्र है जहां छात्रों को प्रशिक्षण दिया जाता है। जिसके उपरांत वे मंद बुद्धि बच्चों की सेवा में नियुक्त होते हैं। क्लासरूम टीचिंग, ग्रुप टीचिंग एवं भारतीय पुनर्वास परिषद के नव शिखर चैनल पर प्रसारित टेलीकॉन्फ्रेंसेस द्वारा संबंधित विषयों पर विस्तार पूर्वक ज्ञान दिया जाता है। मेडिकल, ऑक्यूपेशनल थेरेपी, फिजियोथेरेपी, स्पीच थेरेपी, साइकोलॉजी और स्पेशल एजुकेशन जैसे क्षेत्रों में छात्रों को प्रशिक्षित किया जाता है। प्रयोगात्मक अनुभव एवं अभ्यास के लिए टीचर ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम के उपरांत छात्रों को मंदबुद्धि बच्चों के साथ कक्षाओं में नियुक्त किया जाता है और इंडिविजुअलाइज्ड एजुकेशन प्लान का भी आधार बनाया जाता है, जिससे वे संपूर्ण शिक्षा एवं चिकित्सा शैली को समझ सकें। इस पूरे प्रशिक्षण कार्यक्रम के दौरान विद्यार्थी जर्नल्स, न्यूज़लेटर्स, पेरियोडिकल्स, चार्ट्स, मॉडल्स, कंप्यूटर ट्रेनिंग एवं टेक्स्ट बुक्स का उपयोग कर सकते हैं। कहते हैं, कीप योर फेस टू द सनशाइन एंड यू कैन नॉट सी द शैडो। इसी बात को ध्यान में रखते हुए विद्यार्थियों को सरकारी एवं गैर सरकारी संस्थाओं में नियुक्त किया जाता है, जहां वे मंदबुद्धि बच्चों के लिए निरीक्षण, प्रशिक्षण एवं अनुसंधान का दायित्व संभालते हैं और इसके पश्चात ये विद्यार्थी इस प्रशिक्षण का उपयोग मंदबुद्धि बच्चों के सामाजिक एवं शैक्षणिक उत्थान एवं विकास में करते हैं और एक लक्ष्य की ओर आगे बढ़ते हैं। और फिर लक्ष्य कितना ही दूर हो, फासला नजरों का धोखा भी तो हो सकता है। वो मिले या ना मिले, हाथ बढ़ाकर देखो।
Welcome back after the break. Our topic of discussion for today is role and type of counseling for rehabilitation of the disabled. So now we were just discussing the intervention stage and how counseling is very important for both teachers, parents as well as the disabled child obviously. So we're discussing the various levels and stages at which counseling is required. So we'll continue with this discussion.
Yes, जैसा कि मैं आपके बात कर रहा था, as we were talking about that about the hearing impairment, that what basically hearing impairment for the parents of a hearing impairment child, counseling is required. So basically we can say that parent is the most important, you can say, stakeholder who requires counseling at every stage of rehabilitation. So here at educational stage, after teacher or before teacher, you can say parents is important. So parents should be counseled for why the hearing aid should be maintained properly. Not only the maintenance of, rather why it is required to maintain the proper maintenance of hearing aid. So for this why aspect, parents should be given counseling by an expert who will counsel such type, who will answer such type of question. Only the persons having expertise in hearing area. So here we have to approach the persons who is having the expertise in hearing area or hearing impairment. Then we can get the proper answer of our why, then our question. Then talking with the child as much as possible. Counsel the parent why talking with the child is important. Parent will ask, why I will talk? Because he or she is not giving any response, he or she is not able to hear, then why I will waste my energy to talk? Then you have to, this is one of the problem which parent face. So here the expert required to be counseled, that why talking is must. It is not wasting the energy, rather it is a type of intervention which you are doing, which you are giving the child for the proper rehabilitation or proper development of the capacity or proper use of the hearing level or proper you can say stimulation for hearing, proper stimulation for talking, proper stimulation for communicating with the environment. So, these are the things which parents must know. Why? Everywhere you will find that this why answer, why aspect of behavior is required to be answered. So, this whole counseling process is focused around this why aspect only. If you clear the why aspects, your what and how aspects will be automatically cleared. So, this why aspect is very important. Then giving proper love and affection to the child at par with the other children, because see why it is important again, because child is always, child having hearing impairment is more observant than the other child, because he is observing the environment and he is observing everything, he or she is observing the everything the other children at home is taking or getting benefited. And if as a parents or as a community member you are depriving the child having hearing impairment, that must affect his or her development as well. So, it is my not only rather advice and guidance, rather it is my counseling. Yes, I am giving you solution that you must take care of your child as you are taking care of other child.
So that means if
Yes.
suppose for example a couple has one child who is disabled and another who is
so-
not disabled, it's
So,
very
don't
important.
discriminate. No, don't discriminate.
Yeah, do not
Yes.
discriminate. It's very important to give equal
Yeah, equal,
love and equal attention to
equal,
both the
yeah.
children.
So that both can observe each other.
Yeah,
And it's a sense of you can say affection will develop between
the siblings.
with the siblings also.
And at times it happens that the parents tend to give more attention to the disabled child,
Yes.
so that they can.
That a type of peer group affection will also develop in that way.
True.
Siblings and peer group affection, because the child first peer is of the child having hearing impairment is the next to the child in the home.
Right.
Right. So, this here you can see the slide that peer group, I have already mentioned that peer group counseling for support in classroom and other places such as playground, library, etc., is very important. So, peer group counseling, peer group and siblings, you can say like that. Siblings is also so important like peer group counseling. So, for hearing impairment particularly, this peer group is very important. Did you know the hearing impairment is an impairment which consequences are very much high, and which also to some extent affect the social development of the child also. So, for taking child's proper development, you can say overall development, this peer group interaction is very important, particularly for hearing impairment child, because we cannot make any standardized counseling for all the disabled, all the children with disability. Rather, we must see what are the need of a particular disabled child, and the counseling is given as per the need of the disabled child. So, let us talk about the visual impairment. Here we provide, again we are providing counseling to the parents, this counseling for creating independent living environment for the child at home and also for care and maintenance of mobility aids. Like hearing aids, it is important for the parent to know about the mobility aid if the child having visual impairment is there. So, unless, and we must know as a parent that why to take care of this mobility aids, because this mobility aid is the only way which is giving the child a life to lead independently. So, this mobility is very important and every parent should know. In the same way, teachers should also be counseled for classroom arrangements, seating arrangements for the child and also for the aids and appliances required for educating the visual impaired child. These are all things which required to be clarified before taking the child into consideration. These all the things are where ultimate beneficiary is child, but the counselling is giving to the supportive person, not to the child directly. A child is also required counselling, but after a certain stage. And you can say that the parent may take a lead as a counselor for child, teacher may
Right.
take lead as a counselor for child. Now, I am coming to the locomotor or multiple disability. All the stakeholders such as parents, siblings, teachers, peer group, etc., must be aware of the characteristics and feature of these disabilities. It means, first of all, awareness about the disability is must, because sometimes we say we have a notion that the child or the person having locomotor disability, they do not require any type of a special aid or a special intervention, but this is not the thing. Every child, you can say, having the locomotor disability or cerebral palsy or multiple disability, they require a specific you can say expert intervention in the form of guidance and counseling. So, children or persons with these disabilities like locomotor and multiple disabilities, they require continuous counseling for their day to day management, otherwise their mind got diverted and it may divert to some other way means areas. So, now see this I am just presenting in a very brief, because I need your interaction in this way. So, here the intervention stage also, the role of counseling for children person with disability is important overall, and in the following areas of intervention you can look at the slide, like medical intervention, it is very important because medical intervention is the first intervention, then educational intervention, then therapeutic intervention, then vocational intervention. Now, you see that what is the difference between this medical intervention and therapeutic intervention. You must have some question in mind that what is the difference between medical and therapeutic. Medical intervention is restricted to the doctors who is having the first interaction with the child at any stage, first interaction, and the doctor is the person who can easily identify the child having any sort of disability, and after that this doctor is the person who can refer the child to a particular intervention process. So, therapy is come when the child go for the intervention process. Therapy is a type of intervention, you can say, and therapy is a tool for intervention. So, therapy is a continuous process which turns the child in a different personality or person. So, this is a process, it is again a process. As we take the medicine on the advice of doctors, in the same way we take the therapy after having the expert advice or expert counseling. So, this is the main, therapy is a process and medical intervention is just the identification of the child, and whenever needed either drug or either you can say the medicine or drug, or you can say that some sort of surgical correction, some sort of surgical support, or whenever needed medical aid is always given or available to the child. And at last the vocational rehabilitation and vocational intervention is must, because our ultimate aim is the mainstreaming the child into the community or society, for which the child must be capable of doing something productive for the community, for which a skill development is required. A skill development does not mean the only manual skill, rather any type of a skill. Speaking is also a skill, talking is also a skill, interacting with the person is also a skill. All these are the skill along with the manual skill, where the motor part involvement of motor part is must. So, all these motor skill and cognitive skill and psychomotor skill, you can say social skill, for developing all these skills everywhere the counseling is required. Unless the counselor intervention is not there, the development of a skill will not take place in such a smooth way as it will take place after the intervention of a experts in the form of counselor. So, this is the important area, these are the important area where counseling is required. At the integration stage, this is the final stage. As integration is an ultimate goal of rehabilitation. At this stage, the person means the person with disabilities who has been integrated and placed in any form of employment requires continuous counseling by an expert. Why? Again, it is why. This is the problem which always need solution. Why? So, most of the time what happens that see, this is normal process, again I am telling you, because what I am perceiving, I perceive everything in a normal way. So, this is the problem with every person, that if I am in the society, I must have some problem in a day to day life, and that needs solution, and sometimes what happens, we are capable enough to solve our problem in our own way after having some reasoning or giving some thought on that particular problem. So, this is also a type of self counseling. It is also a type where person is capable enough to solve their problem by just
at an individual level,
by giving some thought, time and thought. But if I am getting some problem, feeling some problem related to employment, related to interaction at workplace, related to interaction with our co-worker, related to interaction with our employer, related to interaction or behavior with the community or society, this type of things requires to have an solved by an expert counselor. So, at this stage, at mainstream stage, the role of counseling becomes very important, very important and inevitable. So, continuous counseling is required in this at this stage. This is the stage where we cannot leave the person alone. If at every time the person is supposed to get some help or support in the form of counseling and expert intervention, then the confidence of the person will maintain properly.
And besides, this stage is the stage when the person will meet the maximum number of people in a different society.
Quite right.
So, he has to deal with all kinds of people, and to deal with the people, he needs counseling for that.
You are quite right. So, now let us have a look of this slide, that ultimate role, ultimate focus of the counseling in disability rehabilitation are acceptance first, then developing positive attitude, and then taking out of inner strength of the persons or children with disabilities, and realization of self strength and its application for livelihood. Not only realization, rather its application is more important than realizing. Then mainstreaming in the society. So, ultimately we can say that counseling is a continuous and lifelong process for rehabilitation of person with disability. This is all about my presentation, and now you can come with the question. I will try to give some input as far as my knowledge is concerned. Thank you.
So, as we've discussed so much about the rehabilitation and the counselors, and how at every step and every level and with every person counseling is required, the most important thing is how can a person approach a counselor, and how would the person know that where and which counselor to approach, and where exactly to reach out to the counselor.
Yes, you are just hitting the practical aspect of the counseling. Very good. So, this is the problem, this is itself a problem, and this requires solution. See, particular so far as this disability rehabilitation is concerned, the approach, how to approach the counselor is again a very you can say a specific task. So, what happened that at each stage, I have already mentioned that this rehabilitation is not a matter of one person or two person, rather it is a teamwork, where each individual service provider is supposed to give thorough information to the person concerned about their own area, and if the requirement is much more than that, it is the responsibility of that service provider to refer or give proper address to the person to contact that expert. So, this is a chain.
So, it is an interrelated
Interrelated chain link, you can say. So, after having one expertise, if we are I am not capable enough to provide counseling in a career, so we must refer the person to a career counselor. If I am not having the expertise in hearing aid, I must refer the person to a person or expert who is having the expertise in hearing aid. If I am not having the expertise in self help care, then I must, it is my responsibility to refer the person to a expert who is having the expertise in self help skills. So, all this is a chain link. So, that is why it is called a teamwork.
right.
So, this is one of the way, but what happened sometimes that we forget to refer the child or the person to a particular place, because sometimes we think that yes, I will deal it, do not worry, and I can handle this problem. In that way, what happened, the person concerned is not getting that much intervention input as much as he or she is required.
As much as required,
Yes.
right.
So, this is one of the approach which must follow. As a professional, we must follow that.
As a professional, the
Yes,
counselor also
yes,
must
yes,
know as
must,
to
yes.
how much counseling he can provide, and then
In other way, you can say that limitation of one expert must be understood by the particular experts.
right.
Yes. So, we in that way we must be honest in that area.
True.
Yes.
So that means the whole process of counseling can be described as a teamwork, and it's very important that one counselor can refer the disabled person to another counselor who might be able to provide better assistance, or which is required by the person himself. Another very important aspect is that the counselors sometimes charge very high fees, and sometimes a disabled person or his family might not be able to afford the expenses of visiting a counselor that often. So, in that scenario, how should the family and the disabled person cope with the counseling process? Are there any government agencies or
see, so far as the charging of fee is concerned, this is not standardized
okay,
and not prescribed. Counselor should charge this much amount. They are not supposed to charge, but that much amount. But what happens? Everybody is doing something, because unless the counselor will not get proper you can say amount to just continue their livelihood, it will difficult for them to provide expert help to other or needy. So, this charge cannot be standardized. It depends on the individual to individual, depends on the situation, or depends on the locality for whom you are serving. So, it cannot be say in a normal way or standardized way that this much this should be the charge, and charge you can say I must say you that this is not a problem.
okay,
Charge is not a problem. Many
So that means-
many counselor, even doctors also, any experts have the consideration of serving the people first, then the charge.
okay.
So, this is happening. This is I am quite sure that every professional follow this rule. The first, their main motto is serve.
So that means
the
this can
person
be
concerned.
described as the ethics also
Yes,
of
ethics
serving.
also, then the charge.
Right.
So, it is not a fixed area, and nobody deny the services.
Right.
Nobody deny. Everybody accept their client as it is. So,
So
this
that
is
means-
yes, this I can assure you.
That means the families and the parents with a disabled child should not basically worry about the expenses of when they go to the counselors for the professional counseling, because that is an aspect, as sir just told us, which can be taken care of, and sometimes the counselors can provide more
Yes,
community service
yes,
also.
let me clarify it, because this counseling word is very prevalent right now.
Right.
Right, it was not prevalent before as right now, because today what is happening in every area, the counseling is matlab must, and counselors are who are counselor, it is not even verified by the people, and everybody is busy with counseling other. So, basically this has become a profession, good profession right now, and it is acceptable also, it is good for us. But basically what is happening that counseling is more prevalent in the area of career. Career counseling is very prevalent right now, or most of us are aware of that, and their career counselor charge a good amount of money for counseling the person, and only those children means approach them who are having who can afford their fees. So for this type of concept is just growing, and we are having that mindset that the counselors are very expensive professional. But what is happening in that area also, every university is providing free counseling for career related counseling also, and their counselors are available for giving you free counseling. Even counseling giving you free expert help to just realize yourself, to explore your inner strength and go for the job which is ultimately matching your strength, and recognize the demand of the job, then what is the requirement of the job, and assess yourself whether you are capable enough to meet that requirement or not. If you are not capable and going for the job, you will be failed in your practical action. If you will come to the action, you will fail. So all these things must recognize, must be assessed before going into entering into the job. So all these areas is a tough thing. It requires a lot of time. It requires a lot of observation where time is to be devoted, and for that the person is charging. It's quite okay. I am not telling that it's wrong. It's quite okay. But the other side, you say, or you think that services are available without charge also.
Without charge also.
So you must explore all these things, that whether services are available or not. Otherwise, it all depends on the individual who will be satisfied where.
Right. And also the financial stability of the person can go to.
Yes.
So that means the fear, it can be just a fear in the parents' minds that counseling is expensive, because it might just turn out to be a myth instead. Counseling is not always expensive because it is provided free of cost also at a lot of places. Another thing that I had in mind was that which aspect of rehabilitation is most benefited by counseling?
See, I have already mentioned in my presentation or when we were discussing the thing, that rehabilitation is a process where person's overall capability taken into account, and explored the person's potential also. So basically, it's a physical aspect, the mental aspect. There are two basic aspects, and the other the social and emotional aspects. So far as the counseling, and you can say that clinical counseling, you can say, or therapeutic counseling, you can say, or the rehabilitation counseling as a whole, you can say, the most part is the person overall personality, which includes emotional, intellectual, social, physical, all. So this all parts equally get benefited. Now you can say that this is going to be benefited like emotional part, but even though we must say that emotional part, which is the most important and most hampering things if it is not in a proper condition. If your emotion is not in your control, you will be lost.
Right.
Yes. So first we must control our emotion. Like, what are the basic emotions? As we all know that these fear, anger, love, these are three are the basic emotion, you can say. So these three must be controlled. All emotion comes within the sphere of these three. So we must control our fear first. We cannot fear, and if we fear, we cannot go ahead. We must control our anger. Otherwise, so many things happens and you are not able to control yourself. And we must be so much enthusiastic, or so much pleasurable, so much immediately excited, so much getting into love to the society, to the other person, so that immediately we cannot be able to control.
Right.
So all these things, because these three things which which some sort of create a change in our mental state as well as physical state. So if these three aspects will be in your control, your personality, your overall development will take place in a smooth way. So you can say that to some extent emotional part must be benefited first, and overall benefit should be go into emotional parts, then it will affect the overall aspects or component of personality.
So that means counseling firstly, most importantly, benefits the emotional aspect of the person, and then automatically the entire personality and the growth of the person is benefited by the counseling by the professionals. Now, as we just talked about the counseling for the parents, so should the parents go alone for the counseling, or should they go along with their children who have the disability? What is better in terms of
No,
benefiting?
see now here another we have to see that what is the situation, that
Right.
as a parents I am feeling that I am thinking that child is required some sort of help which I am not able to render, then how to give that help? This is one of the area where parents needs counseling. So, for this parents should go alone first and talk to the counselor, discuss the problem and get the solution. If the solution, if the problem is felt by both parents and children concerned, both, then both of them should go. This is not
Right. So it depends also at the what kind of problem the parents or
Yes.
the family is facing, that they should decide as to whether they should go for individual counseling or whether they should go along with the children. And as well, plus it's very important that the counselor also suggests and advise the parents as to how they should go ahead with the process of counseling. So right now we're discussing all about counseling for the disabled and the rehabilitation process, how the disabled can be provided better counseling for a better future and a better life for themselves. So we'll continue the discussion, but right now it's time for a short break, so we'll see after a break.
हम होंगे कामयाब, हम होंगे कामयाब, हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन। ओ मन में है विश्वास, पूरा है विश्वास, हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन। We shall overcome, we shall overcome, we shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome someday. We shall overcome someday.
ऑटिज्म एक व्यापक विकासात्मक विकलांगता है जिसके लक्षण जीवन के प्रथम 3 वर्ष में ही दिखाई पड़ते हैं, जैसे असंगत खेल, असमान स्थूल एवं सूक्ष्म गामक क्रियाएं, शाब्दिक संकेतों पर अभिव्यक्ति न देना,
Where is the cup? देखो, open your eyes, open करो, open करके, open.
नियमित कार्यक्रम परिवर्तन का विरोध करना एवं अवलोकनीय शारीरिक उच्च स्तरीय या निम्न स्तरीय क्रियाकलाप। UNCRPD 2007 सेक्शन 1 ऑफ आर्टिकल 4 निशक्तता के क्षेत्र में कार्यरत प्रोफेशनल के प्रशिक्षण पर महत्व देता है। ऑटिज्म के क्षेत्र में सरकारी एवं गैर सरकारी संस्थाएं कार्यरत हैं जो भारतीय पुनर्वास परिषद द्वारा पंजीकृत हैं। सोसाइटी फॉर एडवांस स्टडी इन रिहैबिलिटेशन एक ऐसी ही गैर सरकारी संस्था है। कनिष्क 13 साल का एक ऑटिस्टिक बच्चा है जो इसी संस्था से प्रशिक्षण प्राप्त कर रहा है। असंगत क्रियाएं, कार्यकलापों में निरस्ता, असमान स्थूल एवं सूक्ष्म गामक क्रियाएं जैसे बॉडी रॉकिंग और फिंगर रिगलिंग उसमें देखी जा सकती है। उसे मैचिंग और पेस्टिंग, पॉइंटिंग जैसी क्रियाएं सिखाई जाती हैं।
Very good. Glass. Where is the glass? Glass. Very good. कप को टच करो जल्दी से। कप को। Where is the cup? Very good. कप में क्या करता है कनिष्क? टी पीता है। चलो ग्लास। Where is the glass? वेरी गुड. चलो बाउल किधर है? बाउल बाउल जल्दी से टच करो बाउल को. वेरी गुड. बाउल में क्या करता है कनीज?
तथा साथ ही साथ रोजमर्रा की आवश्यकताएं जैसे खाना, पीना, कपड़े पहनना, और व्यायाम संबंधी प्रशिक्षण दिया जाता है. ऑटिस्टिक बच्चों को भिन्न भिन्न प्रकार की कार्यविधियां उनके स्तर के अनुसार सिखाई जाती हैं. जैसे कुछ बच्चों के लिए कलरिंग विद इन वन एरिया, मैचिंग एंड आइडेंटिफिकेशन, फाइन मोटर स्किल्स, आई हैंड कोऑर्डिनेशन, कंसेप्ट ऑफ वेजिटेबल्स, फ्रूट्स, बॉडी पार्ट्स, कलर्स पर जोर दिया जाता है तथा कुछ को प्रश्न पढ़ के उत्तर देने में और रोजमर्रा की आवश्यकताओं को पूरा करने में सक्षम बनाया जाता है. इसके अलावा राइम्स, डांसिंग, सिंगिंग द्वारा लेजर एंड रिक्रिएशनल एक्टिविटीज में भाग लेने के लिए प्रोत्साहित किया जाता है. इन सभी कार्यकलापों एवं प्रशिक्षण का एकमात्र उद्देश्य उन्हें स्वनिर्भर बनाना है ताकि ये डगमगाते पांव सक्षम बन जीवन के एक एक पायदान पर दृढ़ता से आगे बढ़ें और अपनी मंजिल को पा लें. एक तारा टिमटिमाता, उसने आकाश को छू लिया. एक लौ जली कहीं, उसने अंधकार को मिटा दिया.
Welcome back after the break. Our topic of discussion for today is the role and type of counseling for rehabilitation of the disabled. And right now we were discussing various aspects as to, for example, how a parent should go for counseling, whether the expenses, how they can be managed for counseling. We discussed a lot of myths and facts we came to know by the discussions that we had. Another thing that I would like to ask you, are there any kinds of measures or laws that the government provides for the counselors, to make it simpler for the counselors for the rehabilitation process?
See, laws are there, but it's basically ethics.
Right.
Of the professional ethics. There are professional ethics which works, and every profession should follow that ethics only, because laws meant for the regulation of any kind of services. So that is available in mental health. Like some laws are there for mental health professional. Counselors are also one of the mental health professional, you can say. So laws are there, but the more important than laws is ethics, which every professional should maintain, and they are maintaining. At least in this area it is being maintained. I can say that.
So, are there any kind of problems or challenges faced by the rehabilitation counselors?
Yeah, challenges are everywhere. So, in the same way, this field means rehabilitation field also is, rehabilitation is itself a, particularly disability rehabilitation is itself a very challenging field, and here as I am talking, it's a very simple to talk, and I have already given you some tips. I have talked since last 1 hour, 1.5 hour, but while we go for the action, it is too much difficult.
True.
So, getting the things converted into action, or getting the any concept converted into action, or any strategy which to be converted into action, that is very challenge, itself a challenge, and that challenge, to face that challenge is a work of counselor.
And then it must be very difficult for the counselors also to convince the parents and convince the families.
This is the skill which counselor, counselor develop.
Right.
This is the skill. If you are thoroughly informed, if you are thoroughly knowledgeable, then you will be able to convince the person sitting before you.
Right. So that was the same thing, that
yes,
it's not just the qualification that matters, but he has to be completely up to date.
updated
Right.
information should be there.
Right.
So this getting updated every time itself a challenge.
True.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the main challenge which we all professionals should maintain.
So that means the professionals face problems on a daily basis, and they have a lot of challenges themselves while going ahead with this profession. When they're interacting with the disabled people as well as the families or the community, they have a challenge which they have to face on a daily basis. Now, most importantly, if a person has to become a counselor, a rehabilitation counselor, so how would he or she go about the whole process? Are there any specific educational degrees or qualifications that he has to gain?
See now, Rehabilitation Council of India is also one professional, means recognized professional as a rehabilitation counselor. There are others same type of professional rehabilitation psychologists, and you can say rehabilitation social worker. So for every professional course is standardized, and the basic requirement and the basic degree is required to the master degree, either in psychology or social work or sociology, you can say social science.
So in any one field you have to be an
but to
expert in
become a
that.
psychologist, it is important to have a MA in psychology first,
Okay.
then go for the MPhil and PhD, and for becoming a counselor it is important to have a degree in social science or in rehabilitation.
Okay.
So the recognized qualification rehabilitation. So they can, then you can go for the advanced course in counseling and become counselor.
So that means there are various courses
Yes.
and specialized qualifications that a person might have, because he has to be an expert before he becomes a counselor, and to be able to give professional counseling to the disabled and their families, it's very important to have the proper educational qualification and training for that process.
Yes.
Now lastly, I would just like to ask you, from your personal experiences, can you give us any instance of how counseling helped a disabled person or his family in a certain way?
See, so far as my because I am working in this field since last 21 years. So my experience is that first of all, if a counselor or if a professional is succeeded in convincing a parents, that is the most important, and this is one of the, you can say, important achievement of a counselor.
True.
So I have achieved, and most of the parents, if they are given proper thorough knowledge about the disability and thorough knowledge about their potential of the child and thorough knowledge about the rehabilitation process, and I think it works, and every success, it depends on the convincing power of the counselor and acceptance of the suggestion or solution by the
Right.
stakeholder.
So that
So,
means
there are so many instances, I have already quoted some in my discussion,
Right.
and it works, always works. So, not only concept, rather it's a practical things which works.
So that means a very important aspect, that for counseling to be able to work for the disabled person as well as his family, it's very important that the counselor should have proper conviction to be able to convince the disabled person and his family, and secondly, it's very important for the family also to be able to grasp and understand as to what the counselor is trying to tell you, and to be able to implement what he has told you and to apply it to your personal lives and on the daily basis. So in the discussion of today, we discussed as to what rehabilitation basically means, the stages of rehabilitation, that is the identification stage, then we had the intervention stage, and then we also had the integration stage. So these were the three stages of rehabilitation. Then we discussed as to what counseling and what counseling means, and as he just told us that counseling can have various synonyms. For example, we can discuss about guidance, about advice, and we discussed how guidance and counseling are interrelated and how they can be thought about. Then we also discussed as to the various aspects to which counseling aims at, the various aims of counseling, what counseling aims at basically. Then we discussed how counseling can be provided at different stages. We also discussed as to how counseling can be provided to a mentally retarded person, or a person with hearing impairment, or a person with visual impairment also. And besides, counseling is provided at different levels, for example, to the teachers, to the parents, to the person himself, to the peer group, to everybody at an individual level. Counseling can be provided so as to improve the growth of the disabled person And another very important thing that we discussed was that the person should not be kept in isolation. He should be kept into interaction as much as possible with the society, with the community, so that the child can grow as much as possible. In the last, we discussed the focus of the counselors, what the focus of counselors should be. So this was all about a discussion today. I hope our information was useful to our viewers. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
For
you very
any
much.
kinds of suggestion and feedback, please get back to us on our website or our email ID or any of these numbers. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you the next show the next time.
Thank you.